Hey YouTube, welcome to another video. In this one I wanted to just briefly look over equity versus equality, and I think that it's important to understand the difference between them. We often get them confused. So as a manager, as a leader, it's important to understand we probably need to lead with equity, and an equity essentially means we don't necessarily treat everyone on the same level. So I guess the illustration that I've heard is you picking up coffees and you just say to everyone, I'm buying cappuccinos. Now, cappuccinos are not everyone's choice of coffee. So some people just rather not engage in that at all, and it's somewhat of an offense to them kind of thing, because it's like, well, it's not really what I wanted. Equity, on the other hand, is going, what would you like? I'm going to the cafe, what coffee would you like? And they might go, you know, a latte, a cappuccino, a macchiato, whatever, and you can then get them what they want. Now, that's equity, and that's sort of going, as a leader, we don't just give everyone a dollar for dollar, and we don't necessarily treat everyone equally, but we treat them with equity, because some people are struggling and some people aren't. So do we just treat everyone the same and go, everyone has to do overtime, even though you know that one particular staff member just can't do that at the moment because sick kids or whatever their personal circumstances is preventing them from doing that? So rather than making them necessarily feel bad or like they're letting the team down by them having to decline on being able to provide that, you're better off to be accommodating in that, and that's treating your staff with equity. It's also important because that builds off the fact you have a relationship. You understand their personal circumstances, and I'm a big believer in understanding someone's personal situation without having to be their friend or be necessarily invested into that circumstance, if that makes sense. So there's a difference between having an understanding, and I myself often gain my intel and insight around my team from what's not said, but reading between the lines, as well as the body language and stuff within that. So I don't need somebody necessarily to say to me, this is what's going on right now for me. More often than not, I can gather all that intel from other staff that have been closer to them as such on a personal front. But I'm also able to read from their outputs that something's not right, and I often will invite a platform for a conversation around it, but I don't necessarily get involved because I personally believe that there is a line between professionalism and crossing that. So within understanding somebody's personal circumstances in a professional setting is the important element, and for each person that's something you need to determine the boundaries of that yourself. However, understanding that treating everyone equally doesn't generally work as well as if you treated everyone with equity. And if you treat them with equity, you're going to get far better staff, because you're giving them all the even playing field essentially. You're the one that's working out who needs some buffering, who needs different tasking, and that's your job as a leader, is to manage the required outputs of the team across the team members. Now when you look at, let's just take a field sport, soccer. Let's look at football/soccer, depending on where you are watching this from. All those team players are not expected to do the same job, are they? You know, you got your front rows, you got your goalie, you know, they all have a different task. So you can't turn around and say, well, yeah, the goalie didn't run as far as, you know, your forwards. Well, of course he didn't. It wasn't part of the requirements of the goalie's role in this. And that, I suppose, for me personally, that is a breakthrough in understanding in that mindset of the difference between equality and equity. If you were treating them all equally, you would expect every single person on that field, and you could use football, you can use any analogy you like, and you could even go as far as the Olympics, and you could bring in a number of those different sports. They're all got different outputs, they've all got different requirements. You can't equally expect a shot put thrower to run 100 meters. That's unrealistic. That's not equal. But equity is going, the shot put person is skilled in these certain things, throwing a shot put the furthest and whatnot, and they've trained and trained and trained, and they're the SME. If you watch some of my other videos, they're the expert in that. The 100-meter runner, they're the expert in that. Don't expect them to cross fields. Expect them to perform where they are, but treat them with equity and go, my expectations of that person versus my expectations of that person. They're both sports people. They're both, you know, achieved it to the Olympics, for instance, or, you know, if you're looking at the soccer analogy, and they're all on the field. They're performing at the caliber that they are. But you cannot expect every single person to perform exactly the same level. And I think that is where a lot of managers and leaders go wrong, is they expect all their staff to perform to these KPIs, and a lot of the corporate structure is there. And yet often we need a little bit more fluidity and kind of looking at it with the equity in mind and going, yep, that's fantastic. Our team's overall output is this, and that's our requirements. And these are my team members, these are their skill sets, these are their strengths and weaknesses, this is what they can do for the team, and build it up from there. And that's where previously I've looked at whether I'm heavily stacked in the senior end, people who have good expertise and experience, what most deem as an SME, versus a junior where they're fresh in off the street. And understanding where and what my team needs in the team in order for the outcomes to be reached and delivered upon based off those criteria. That's the difference between the equity and the equality. And yeah, I think a lot of managers look at treating everyone equal rather than treating everyone with equity. So if that's challenged you, give me a thumbs up. Chuck some comments in the comments field. Bell icon, 9 AM Monday to Friday Australian Eastern Standard Time. I roll out a new video. If you've enjoyed them, great. Have an awesome day, and you'll see me 9 AM unless you're watching these after the fact. Thanks for watching. You have a good day. Bye.